Saturday is the second annual Women's March Chicago, and here to tell us all about it is the organizer, Jackie Algie, and comedian and March MC, Fazia Mirza. Thank you guys for being back with us this year.
Thank you, Val.
Listen, congratulations on the success of last year. You expected 60,000 people.
That's right.
You had more than 250,000 people come out. Are you even ready for what's going to happen this weekend?
So ready. So last year just prepared us for the possibility.
Right.
So we're ready.
Yeah. This is about women's rights, about social injustice. For people that aren't familiar, what do you tell them?
We tell them, come and find out. I mean, this is a place for all women and men to be a part of of history being made. This is history in the making. Women have stood up for themselves for a very long time, but never to the degree that they're doing now.
Yeah. And they have even more reason to.
They do. They
Well, it definitely feels like we're like in the middle of a social revolution right now. And, you know, for whatever reason, last year everyone gathered, but it sort of opened a portal to a reminder like, oh my gosh, we should run more. We should get more women of color in office. We should get more women at the table. We should have more women in leadership roles. And so, you know, there's so many organizations that are going to be represented, and there's so many issues that are going to be represented, and it is deeply, deeply intersectional and inclusive. So that's super exciting.
Well, speaking about the logistics, I was there last year, and there was a lot of confusion because once we got down there, then we were told it was canceled, and then we didn't quite know where the actual platform was, and so we were just circling and circling. So how are you going to do things differently like this weekend?
To Ryan's point, you know, we're much better prepared this year because we didn't expect that last year. And this year it's like, okay, how do we really put some logistical, you know, mapping together and directions for people, make sure that we have more marshals and people that are just there to give direction. And we've done directions online on our website, so people please go and visit the website. But yeah.
And there's going to be jumbotrons.
Yeah.
I know that last year people were like, Fazia, I knew you were there, but I couldn't hear you. And there was a little brown speck, and I wasn't sure if it was a bird or a human. It was me.
That was her.
That was me. And so there's definitely the sound systems. There's definitely there's some great sound. There's going to be some jumbotrons, and yeah, it's I'm ready. I'm excited.
Yeah. What do you think the message will be this year? Different than last year. What's the takeaway? What do you want people to go home with?
That, you know, all women are included. Whether you have, whatever your issue is, there's a place for you here. And that's very important for us to make sure that people, women in particular, are felt included.
What are your thoughts on the Me Too movement and what we're seeing in Hollywood and how much this has had a voice and a movement?
You know, I think that, I mean, you know, I consider myself an activist, artist, and artivist, right? And so I feel like everything that is created through art has some sort of social justice platform as well. And, you know, the Me Too movement is essential. It's important. And I think, you know, when people talk about the fact that, well, I'm scared that this is happening, and I say, well, having worked in sexual violence prevention for 9-10 years, I say, well, think about all the women who have been terrified for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. And so that's why I say we're in the midst of this revolution, because right now we are sort of having to rebuild and reconstruct how we talk to each other and think about what happens privately behind closed doors and begin new kinds of conversations. And so it's scary, but I think it's really, really exciting.
And speaking of new conversations, it's so multifaceted thinking about the Me Too movement. As a comedian, as an Asian American, I want to get your thoughts on the new allegations against Aziz Ansari.
Here we go.
I mean, here we go. You know, are there some innocents that are getting caught up in this Me Too movement? Is it possible that sometimes women are misinterpreting a bad date for maybe something crossing the line? And how do we talk about those?
Well, I think the thing that is so important to acknowledge when we're talking about these issues is that it's okay not to have all the answers, and it's not quite just black or white, right? Like, do I suddenly now have to not like Aziz Ansari? You can or you cannot, but there's so much more. I think we have to look at this as a time and a space then to have the conversation. And I do believe that, you know, there is such a thing as bad sex. There is such a thing as a bad date. But I do also believe that nonverbal cues is not consent. There are lots of nonverbal cues that people give all the time. And oftentimes what happens is we notice them when we're sitting here, but then suddenly we conveniently forget them when we're behind closed doors. And I also think that there is, people like, whether it's Aziz or somebody else, there is privilege there, whether it's celebrity privilege or male privilege or sexual privilege. And it is important to talk about this. It's deeply essential to moving forward. And I think one of the things, a lot of men say, well, I can't talk about this. And I said, yes, you can. And yes, you must. Right. But you can say, if someone comes to you, you can say, I don't know what happened, but I hear you and I believe you. Are you okay? And I think engaging these conversations from a place of empathy is one of the most powerful things we can do for the survivors and the people who are in those situations.
Yeah, absolutely. Very well said. Thank you so much to you both for being here. The March for the Polls, the second annual Women's March Chicago, is this Saturday, January 20th at 11 a.m. at Congress and Columbus. All right, coming